Trade finance moves over $10 trillion a year. Yet behind every letter of credit, every bank guarantee lies a process that hasn't changed in decades. Delays, errors, and rising costs continue to define the system. In December 2025, Aurionpro marked a defining moment in India's innovation story with the launch of Aurion AI, signaling a clear shift towards smarter, future-ready enterprises. Today, that vision moves forward. From intelligence-led systems to agent-driven execution, this is the next chapter in the evolution of trade finance. Aurionpro presents Agentic Trade Finance Unleashed.
Today's world is a world of AI. We have AI impacting all facets of our life, everywhere we go, everything we do. But there's a very important point. While AI has impacted the finance world, it's not had such a great impact on the trade finance, and that is a huge space. To tell us more about that and to find out more about what this company is doing in that space, I'm joined by Ashish Rai. He's the Group CEO at Aurionpro. Ashish, thank you so much for joining us here today, and I'm very excited to know about what Aurionpro is doing in this space. So let's kick off our discussion. Trade finance, obviously a very important part of the global economy, the global ecosystem. Some figures say that trade finance moves about $10 trillion annually, but the issuance timelines stretch from 5 to 7 days. The costs go up to even sometimes $600 US. Why is this sector so resistant to change? Why can't things be moving faster and at a cheaper price?
Hey Sumit, hi. First of all, thank you for having me. So you're right? I mean, it's not just the transaction costs. Trade is both document heavy as well as rules heavy, right? So saying trade finance has been there for a long time. The rules, I think the whole process when you designed it from the time when you did not have computers, you had human as the processor, you had the file drawer as the software, there is no real good reason why processing time should be very, very long. But I think you need some fundamental work on the process. You need some fundamental work on using technology. What we launch, obviously, right now is Fintra, what we believe is the first fully AI native trade finance platform that's been built from scratch, right? And I think it's been designed to cut down on the costs. It's been designed to cut down on the processing times. It's been designed to make agentic execution a reality in the trade finance world. I believe the reason we are where we are is essentially because the technology itself has not changed for a long time. And we've looked at AI assistance on the trade finance process for some time, but you've not really seen a fundamental reinvention of what that architecture needs to be, what that agentic execution needs to look like. So we have this philosophy, right? I think, and we're talking about earlier, we launched Aurion AI, which is the intelligence framework that we have, which is what does software need to be for the agentic execution age, right? So we had this whole sort of point of view around what banking software 2.0 needs to be, right? And very simply, what software 2.0 needs to be is what does it need to do, right? So what it needs to do is it obviously needs to do everything that software 1.0 did, right? Which is the codification of the trade finance process in the bank, right? And then it needs to do two things. It needs to provide the tools for the agents to operate as first-class operators on the trade finance process, right? So the tools, the rails for them to execute, and it needs to provide the tools and the framework for the human operators to supervise the agents, to govern the agents, right? So that's what we're sort of putting forward, and we believe this will change that fundamental problem that you talk about.
Absolutely, Ashish. No, you said a couple of very interesting and pertinent points, because in today's world where I can use my mobile phone to transfer money to somebody in a couple of seconds, why should trade finance take that long? I want to pick your brain on what you said, that Fintra is AI native. So there are a lot of softwares out there that are AI assisted. You're calling it AI native. So what is the fundamental operational difference? And how will it work out? Because I believe you guys say that the AI does the work and the humans will govern. So can you elaborate on that a bit for me?
Yeah, so that's a good question, right, Sumit? So AI native, so what we really mean is it's important for the bank to not look at agents as a additional AI feature that rides together like a co-pilot mode with my software. It's an additional chatbot that I can ask questions to. I think we need to really look at what do you need to do to make agentic execution a success, which means agents are first-class operators on the trade finance workflow. And the software does those three things, right? So software helps build the governance layer around and also helps the agents find the tools to operate, right? I think what really happens is if you are not architecting it for agentic execution, right? So you will not really have the tools that the agents need, the rails that the agents need, the codification of what can be done, what cannot be done. Trade is extremely rules heavy, right? So UCP 600, if you look at it, I mean, you look at a typical LC, right? You need a lot of different checks to make sure you're compliant. If you do not enable the agent, if you're riding on a very old architecture, you don't have the API calls they need. You don't have the event bus they can publish to. It will be very, very difficult to get the level of performance that you want, right? So that is what we really mean. Start from scratch and design the architecture that is ready for the agentic execution to happen inside the bank, right? Ready for banking is a very regulated industry. Right. So you also need to be able to have the last level of information in terms of, audit logs, in terms of trail as to why a particular decision happened, right? So be ready for that level of granularity of information inside the software. Be ready for essentially governance is a complex thing, right? So we designed this protocol called CGHP, which essentially stands for Confidence Gated Handoff Protocol, where we look across a number of parameters as to whether or not the agent is ready for a semi-autonomous or an autonomous mode of operation, right? Which is where you're looking at a comprehensive framework where you're looking at, for example, things like materiality of the transaction. You're looking at how novel is the transaction, so how many sigma away is it from a normal pattern matched standard transaction. You're looking at multiple parameters to say, okay, I have evaluated on these gates, and I feel that I'm at a level where the agent is ready for at least a semi-autonomous execution, and the human is exercising the judgment on the decision, right? So unless you design it from scratch for that execution, if you ride on a 15, 20-year-old architecture, we will not get the efficacy, right? So that's what we really mean by AI native. What does software need to be for the agentic execution, which is the software 2.0? What does agentic execution need to look like? What does that governance layer need to look like? Right? So that's what we really mean when we say this. We believe is the first AI native trade finance platform that has been designed from zero to operate in this way.
Superb. That helps a lot to understand this better. Ashish, one more thing is, if I go out to buy any piece of electronic, any software, there'll always be like a long list of features. We have these many modes, this, that, blah, blah. I've noticed with Fintra, you have 6 agents, not 6 features. Can you tell me about that, these 6 AI agents that are embedded in Fintra?
Yeah, so I think, Sumit, so the way we thought about it, right? So we said, okay, again, you think of agents in terms of not AI features, but like first-class, fully working operators on the workflow. So we thought, what should these agents be? We actually have a longer catalog of agents that we're working on around the trade finance process. And we said we have rolled out 6 agents inside this trade finance platform, right? And this is where we are ready. The way to think about agentic execution is when we come in, first, we obviously come in with a highly specialized trade finance LLM that has, specifically been trained for purpose. And then we have really worked and fine-tuned these agents. For example, let's look at LC, for example, right? You're trying to initiate a LC. You're a corporate maker sitting in a corporate trying to initiate a LC. You start with uploading a purchase order, for example, right? So you've got a document extraction agent that helps extract all the information from the purchase order. it sort of shows it back to you in terms of various confidence levels of extraction, but it does a very good job of that. And then it senses your intent. For example, you got a full agent mode for the corporate, so you can just on a conversation create an LC, right? So you can start with, you don't even need to state an intent. If you upload a PO, we already know that you want to create that LC, or you start with a conversation and say, I want to do this for so and so. That full agent mode experience for the corporate is highly intuitive. It's a very different level of user experience than what corporates are used to, right? As you go further and you say, let's say I approve it from within the corporate and goes to the bank side, we obviously do an immediate, there's a screening agent that does immediate screening, AML against sanction lists, all that stuff, and routes it to a compliance queue if it needs to, or otherwise you go to the bank officer who's looking at it. You've got a risk scoring agent, which is again a highly sophisticated agent, multi-parameters to assist the bank in terms of looking at the risk profile, right? Similarly, as you go forward, let's say your LC is issued, you also have the clause recommendation agent where you're recommending, for example, what are the appropriate clauses for this type of LC, right? And let's say you issue the LC and you are in the document presentation stage, you got a very sophisticated agent to help with the examination, because again, like I said, trade is extremely rules heavy. So when you're looking at document examination, you present a bill of lading or something, you're looking at multiple layers, right? You're not only looking at matching it to the LC terms, you're looking at sort of cross document consistency, you're looking at against compliance rules, right? So to do this multi-layer examination, again, you got a set of agents. You got an agent which does it, right? Above all this, I think the main sort of the secret sauce, or rather the sort of most productive part of it, is an agent which essentially implements the CGHP, the confidence gated handoff protocol, right? Which is the governance layer that gives the human operators the confidence that I am at the right level, right? The other thing that we do is, the way I would think about it is, while we walk in with agents which we worked on in our research labs and LLM, which is highly trained, the thing about AI adoption in an enterprise is that it's more a journey than a software style switch on, switch off, right? So in the software age, you say, I spend a year implementing the software. When it's live, you switch it on, it's live, right? In the AI age, I think what really happens is agents progressively get better, and hence we have this concept of sort of progressive autonomy, right? So you have to earn the autonomy. So we actually come in with a forward deployed team that sits with the bank, fine-tunes it further based on the bank's data, on the bank's environment, based on feedback from bank's operators. And we have this concept of an agreement rate, for example, right? So what is we methodically track the agreement rate between the agent decision and the operator's decision, for example, right? And let's say you started at a 70% agreement rate. We fine-tune the model inside the bank. We agree a threshold, let's say it's 95%. So you methodically work towards getting to that 95%, where the agent then earns its autonomy, right? That's why I say you sort of progress along the curve rather than the classic software 1.0 style. I just switch it on and the software is live, right? So I think that is the sort of way to think about it. One, a set of very sophisticated, highly effective agents, and then a framework to both govern them, as well as progressively move towards more and more autonomy on the trade finance process.
You are on top of the world with Times Network, and you're watching ET Now.
And nothing should stop our soldiers from marching forward. To make this possible, somewhere a strong bridge has been built. At Ultratech, India's #1 cement, we believe that to keep growing, India needs to keep building. Ultratech Cement. As India builds, India grows.
Impressive.
Just a minute. Sir, try this tennis bracelet.
But she doesn't play tennis.
Sir, it's for everybody.
I know. I know. How charming.
That's why it is called a charm bracelet. If you lose an argument, its charm can save you.
That's the problem. I didn't lose. I won.
Then nothing less than solitaire will do.
That works. Candia. Lifestyle jewelry.
More than 1.56 billion tourists. Completion of Sri Ram Mandir after 5 centuries. Over 45 crore devotees at Mahakumbh in Prayagraj. A world record with more than 26 lakh diyas at Ayodhya's Deepotsav 2025. In 9 years of transformative governance, the double-engine government in Uttar Pradesh, under the dynamic leadership of Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, is redefining tourism excellence, reviving its cultural legacy and unlocking the potential of a thriving heritage economy.
2017 के पहले ये संख्या कुछ लाखों में हुआ करती थी, आज ये करोड़ों में पहुंच गई है। ये केवल पर्यटन नहीं है, ये राष्ट्र को जोड़ने के सेतु भी हैं। यह प्रदेश के बारे में परसेप्शन को बदलने वाले भी हैं और रोजगार के नई संभावनाओं को भी आगे बढ़ाने वाले हैं।
The state government is developing the Buddhist circuit across key pilgrimage sites, strengthening religious and spiritual tourism. The completion of the Vishwanath corridor has improved accessibility, driving tourism growth and boosting the local economy. To promote eco-tourism, the state has introduced air connectivity from Lucknow to Dudhwa National Park. Through the Uttar Pradesh Tourism Policy 2022, the state government is redefining hospitality with a holistic, multi-dimensional approach. Reviving faith, preserving heritage and transforming tourism. Uttar Pradesh is emerging as the cultural soul of India.
इस एरिया में कोई डेंटिस्ट है क्या?
नॉट येट। शैडो फ्री लाइटिंग विद डीप कैविटी इल्यूमिनेशन। कॉर्नर स्पेस है सर।
वेटिंग एरिया के लिए परफेक्ट है। डेंटिस्ट्री कहाँ से की डॉक्टर?
डॉक्टर नहीं, बैंकर। तो फिर ये सब
KYC।
यू आर ऑलवेज बिजी सर।
आसपास कोई दूसरा क्लिनिक है भी नहीं ना?
आज नहीं, पर कल हुआ तो एक नया मॉल खुला है सर, आप वहाँ ब्रांच खोल लीजिए।
इन्वेस्टमेंट
इतना, और डॉक्टर्स के लिए स्पेशल लोन है सर, क्लिनिक सेटअप, इक्विपमेंट सब कवर।
आपको और आपकी जरूरतों को अच्छे से समझना हमारे लिए वही है असली KYC। एक्सिस बैंक।
First up, so I'll play a bit of a devil's advocate. Now, banks are legacy organizations, all right? They've been around minimum at least for decades. Some have been around for centuries. Some of their systems, their trade finance systems, would also be legacy systems. How are you talking to them about them implementing FinTra? I mean, how are you showing them what the ROI would be, or how easy or how tough would it be for these banks to adopt FinTra? What's the feedback you're getting there?
Yeah, so look, number of conversations, and for us, obviously, if you're a large bank, if you're a mature bank, there is an existing infrastructure that exists for the trade finance operations, right? So you've got an existing technology stack, you've got an existing operational stack. Maybe you experimented with a number of AI POCs, right? I mean, if you look at the banking world, there's a million toy applications sitting inside sandboxes right now, right? And lots of POCs happen, right? And you say, okay, I actually want to work on a large transformation that actually delivers me the results. For us, if you look at it, we think about it in 3 different ways, right? So one is, of course, if you're a bank who's looking at a transformation across the stack, you have a partner who will work with you. One, both on the software adaptations, which is the full FinTra front to back trade finance software across all the instruments in the bank does, and work on the corporate side, work with the agent side, right? So one is a full transformation where we say, okay, that's a long program, and we'll start with pilots and we'll go through the whole journey. The second sort of method is, say, I only want to work on the intelligence layer. So as long as the banks tech architecture, the tech platform can expose their APIs to our agents. We can come in with the agents. We'll come in with the governance framework and the governance software along with it, as well as the very specialized LLM that is needed for the agents to operate, right? And we'll set it up inside the bank's perimeter. So, there's no questions around data sovereignty, no questions around security. So that's number two. And other thing is we say, okay, I just want to change the experience for my corporate clients, in which case we say, let's just work on the corporate front end together with the agents and not so much the back end. And as we progress, I think what we've seen as we progress the conversation is you do need to come to a point where we say, is the infrastructure giving the agents everything they need? And there may be, there may be, once you get the agents and the intelligence layer in place, you say they may work around the software that needs to be done, right? But that's a progressive evolution that happens anyways, right? So either of those three ways, I think, is the right way to start. We say start at the intelligence layer, start at the front end, or go through the whole transformation journey, which is obviously in a large banker. For example, we're having some conversations. That's a fairly multi-year sort of journey for the bank, right? And once all of that is done, like I said earlier, I think the AI journey for the bank, again, it's not a switch on, switch off the agent. It's again a journey where we come in with a forward deployed team that works with the bank's team to progressively, for the agents to progressively earn that autonomy, and for the bank to get that confidence that I am actually ready for a kind of quasi semi-autonomous execution, or even for the kind of material their tasks, a fully autonomous execution. Right?
Perfect. So it's about kind of easing them slowly into this, rather than like what you said with the software era, it was just on off with the software. But then Ashish, what about the trade finance space is also regulated, highly stringent. They have to be careful with not for any frauds or anything to happen. How have you prepared this software to be ready for all of those challenges?
Yeah, so look, I think the way we deploy, we've been ready on this forever. So we are a fairly prominent partner to a number of large banks across on the technology side, on the software side for a fair amount of time. We really, when we design the software from ground up, we design it methodically for security, for compliance, for existence within the bank's environment. We usually come and deploy this inside the bank walls. So even the agents, when we come and execute, right? I mean, we will come in with a private, very, very bank-specific LLM that will sit inside the bank, right? So you're not making call onto a cloud-based LLM or a public closed-weights LLM, which you don't know what's there, and you don't. More than that, it's not a black box that you can't explain to your regulator. Right. So I think for us, we are very focused on that, on how do we really bring this inside the bank's perimeter where your data sovereignty is not compromised, where your security is not compromised. We also run a very focused research lab called Lexi Labs, where we have done cutting-edge research on the really hard problems to solve when it comes to taking enterprise AI into production inside banks, right? For example, we have this algo called DL backtrace on explainability, where we have it's one of the more prominent algos out there. We've done some very deep research around model level explainability, right? So where you say when I have to explain something to regulator, one is a decision level explainability, which is inside the software and the agents, and you say, okay, why did I arrive at a decision, which is again a multi-parameter framework. And the second is a model level explainability, where you say, okay, why did we come to it, right? So we are able to tackle both the aspects very effectively, so that when a bank takes something into production, and the question is, why did we arrive at a particular decision, you're able to do that. Plus very, very deep audit trails, very, very deep logs to be able to again go back to decision parameters, right? So I think we've always been very focused on it. And I think as we went about designing this, the focus, of course, was what does software need to be for this age of agentic execution, but it's also how do we stay true to the principles of bank-grade technology, right? So I think that's how we've gone about doing it.
So getting the best of legacy and modern together in one place. Ashish, you've explained to us what Fintra is, what's the rationale behind it, what it can do. But to the viewers out there who are watching us, especially those that are from the banking ecosystem, from banks, what's your advice to them on how they can navigate this transition smoothly?
It's a great question. So look, how I would look at it is this. So first of all, I think this is one of those journeys that I think bank wants to start today. And not wait for a very high level of maturity on processes, right? Because, like I say, unlike the classic software 1.0 world where I spend 12, 18 months implementing the software and it goes on, I think how things work in the agentic age is you need to progressively sort of fine-tune, progressively get better outcomes, right? Which means the agents progressively earn their autonomy, right? So the important thing is to start the journey, right? The second important thing is the readiness for AI, right? I think it's very important to understand what the architecture is of the current platform and whether or not we are ready for it, because it takes time for the architecture to catch up. Like I was saying, for an agent to work, right, you need that surface area which it can operate with, right? I mean, you need consistency of transactional information. You need API calls it can make for features for tools, right? You need event bus it can sort of log events in. You need you need state machines you can traverse, right? So if you don't have the tools and the rails that the agents need to operate, it is very difficult to get the outcome that you are aiming for. Right. So I think that is important. And the last part I would say is, I think we get too lost with sort of AI features and forget governance for that, right? Which is in my head the most important feature, right? How do I really govern every part of the agentic execution in the enterprise? To me, that's again a piece of software, but then how do I configure it for the various thresholds? How do I really measure my agreement rates, for example? What gates do I set up? I mean, this framework that we come up with, CGHP, you know, it's a framework. We can evolve that together with the banking partner, but you say what gates are important? Is materiality of the transaction important? Is the regulatory impact of a transaction important? Is how many sigmas away is it from a normal transaction important to me? At what gates do I want to set for me to get comfortable that this is how I will have that AI is going to happen. So it's important to start thinking beyond the co-pilot mode where you say, okay, I can ask a question, get information about my client, and that's good enough, to saying, how does agent become a first-class operator on my workflow, where I am taking away that 5 to 7 days that you're talking about on the LC process, or the very high rejection rates that my corporates face. How do I really, or the cost that you talk about, right? I mean, how do I really attack those vectors through a first-class operation, right? And when we start thinking about that way, then you say, okay, what governance do I need? What architecture do I need? How do I really work with a partner to really go on this journey and get it done? Because this is a journey, and you need to be set up right for it, right? I mean, that's what I would say.
Fantastic. Well, definitely exciting times ahead. Ashish, thank you so much for your time and for sharing all this information about Fintra. Yes, definitely trade finance does need to be disrupted, and with Fintra, I can see how you're going to be using AI to help change that system and move it, progress it, so that overall the global economy, the global trade improves and does things move faster. Thank you so much, Ashish, for your time and for talking to us today. Thank you.
Thank you.